6 words, I found my treasure in you.
Hey guys, just got back from work and thought what better to do than record my first Q&A session for you guys, something that I'll hopefully be doing once a week. So the questions you send in, I will choose the ones that I feel that are most generic, and that way my answers will not only benefit the person that actually provided the question, but everybody who gets to listen to this webcast will be able to utilise the information that I give and apply it to themselves hopefully and use it for your own goals. I just thought I'd like to make it clear that these answers that I give to your questions are my opinion based on articles that I've read, as well as through my own experience, because I'm a big believer in trying what works best for you. Everybody's different, everybody reacts differently to different things, so what works best for me may not necessarily work best for you, but I'm going to tell you what I do and you can choose to try it and implement it, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you'll get the same results that I have. That goes to say as well that I'm sure that there are many different approaches out there to answer the questions that you're asking, but I'm just going to discuss the ones that have worked for myself, and you can take them on board or not, basically. So let's get started. First Q&A. Hopefully I'll be producing one of these a week. And the first question comes from a guy called Tony, otherwise known as Unique Physique, and he answered this question to me on YouTube after my first vlog. And he says to me, "So, Josh, what's your take on cardio? When do you do it? Do you do it? How much? Fasted or post-workout? HIIT versus Liz, steady state?" So it's a very broad question, but I'll do my best to explain what I've done over my last recent cut. So I started cutting I think it was about the day after the British finals actually. I just wanted to get back motivated and back in the gym as I had lost a bit of discipline, to be honest with you. So I'll just explain what I've done with my cardio in order to get down to the condition I'm in now. So for me, I actually only use cardio in order to get myself down to the body fat that I want to be in. And when I'm happy with that level of body fat percentage, I'll no longer continue to carry it out, and actually I'll gradually wean myself off it and maintain the condition that I'm doing so now through intense weight training and just through my strict diet. So that's what I'm currently doing. No, haven't done any cardio in the last sort of 3 or 4 weeks. I've just been making sure that my diet's very tight, and that means that I don't have to do any cardio. And the reason I do this is because I want my lifestyle to be as manageable as possible. Now I'm back at university and I'm studying. It can be very taxing trying to, what I was doing before, getting up and doing my fasted is, an hour or two before work, when actually that extra hour or two of sleep would have helped me function a lot better during the day and would have had times where, I wasn't lagging as much effectively. With that being said, yeah, so the cut I did this time, I'm very well known for being quite extreme amongst my friends, and I go to very far lengths in order to achieve what I do, which is not necessarily needed, but for some reason I like to make myself suffer sometimes. So I introduced my cardio straight away when I started cutting. I didn't wait a couple of weeks for the diet to hit, I just went straight in. And I performed 20 minutes Liz intervals on the Stairmaster with my heart rate around 130, 135, and this would be first thing in the morning, fasted, after having consumed 5 to 10 grams of glutamine, 5 to 10 grams of branch chains, as well as black coffee and green tea extract, and a gram of L-carnitine as well. These are the supplements I utilise in the fat burning process. But with regard to the cardio itself, when I say intervals, I was actually doing the same pace, so keeping my heart rate steady, but 1 minute I'd concentrate on contracting my glutes and hamstrings, and the next minute I would really engage my core and focus on squeezing it tight. And that's one thing that I think people get very wrong with doing steady state cardio. You see a lot of people on these crazy inclines on the treadmill, walking up as if they're going up Mount Everest or something like that, and they're holding on to the sides. You should be able to stabilise yourself, guys. It's steady state cardio. You shouldn't be holding on to the sides. You should be doing some sort of work. You're not supposed to be pulling yourself along like a rope. So That's why I try to do it. It helps engage your core, uses other stability muscles. So yeah, that's what I do for Liz. With regard to HIIT, I perform the HIIT every day as well, after my weight session on the spin bike. But this session was only short and it lasted for about 7 minutes in total. So for me, if you're performing HIIT properly, that is way more than enough. And I can tell you from experience that I can get very nasty with my legs often involuntary twitching and cramping up during the rest periods, and it can be quite unpleasant. For people that say they're doing HIIT cardio for more than 20 minutes, I don't believe it, because I can't pedal for more than 20 seconds without my legs cramping up. So if you can, fair enough, you've got better functionality than I do. So what's the protocol I follow? So I will do a 1 minute warm up just to flush blood into the legs and get warm effectively, so I'm not stiff and I can actually carry out the sprint. And I perform 5 sets of 20-second sprint at the highest resistance I can until the point where I can no longer pedal effectively. So the end of the 20 seconds you want to be failing, like burnt out. And that's followed by 40 seconds rest. And as I say, I do that 5 times. And then I cool down for a couple of minutes to remove the lactic acid from my legs and get my breathing back to normal. So as you can see, I'm an advocate of both Liz and HIIT. However, for me, each of those serve a different purpose. So Liz, I perform as I enjoy doing it, to be honest with you. When I wake up in the morning, it gets me up, it gets me my blood circulating, it makes me fresh, and it gets me ready for the day. I mean, that time that I'm spent on there, it makes me think about goals I want to achieve for the day, what I've got planned for the rest of the day, my routine. And when I leave there, I feel like I've achieved something, feel like I've got my metabolism going somewhat, and I know what I'm going to do for the rest of the day. Whereas HIIT, on the other hand, can be a lot less enjoyable, but I feel that performing it, particularly this time on the spinning bike, rather than doing, say, track sprints, has really brought out the conditioning in my legs this time, whilst also keeping them full. Previously, in the past when I've done other cuts, I've only done Liz, and I found that my legs flattened out, they were smaller, they were smoother, and I also tended to hold water in them, so that's why I implemented HIIT. I saw a difference, and I suddenly started getting these cuts in my legs, and they were bigger, and it worked out for me. So the HIIT was performed at the end of the weight session when my glycogen is already depleted, and I found that also really helped torch off the fact that as soon as I started incorporating that post-workout, that was when I really started to get super lean. And I'm sure people say, you know, you run the risk of going catabolic, you're going to burn muscle, you're going to waste your gains, you're going to burn muscle rather than using fat, but I ensure that I take the right supplements in order to prevent this from happening. Well, I feel like I take the right supplements. Plus, the session is only 7 minutes, so I very much doubt that that is enough time for muscle wastage to occur. So I have 10 grams of branch chains 20 minutes before I carry out the HIIT, which is basically sipped during my weight training session. And I have 10 grams of branch chains, 5 grams of leucine, 5 grams of glutamine peptides immediately after I finish the HIIT, and I feel that that prevents any potential muscle loss. So I mentioned about the conditioning that the HIIT helped with my legs, but I also think that it served to improve my functionality, but more importantly, my metabolism, and also to mobilize those fatty acids. I'll remain in that fat burning zone up until my post-workout, which is 45 minutes later, and I've chosen to have, you know, the supplements that I mentioned before post-workout rather than a protein shake or any simple carbs, as I don't want to spike my insulin levels and, you know, flip the switch to no longer being in that fat burning zone. But with that being said, there is a very, very fine line between how long one should wait before you do go into that catabolic state. But I found that 45 minutes is adequate enough, and has worked well for myself. I haven't lost any gains, and I've got leaner, and I've been able to hold that size whilst getting the condition. So that's what I tend to do. After the HIIT session itself, I foam roll for about 10 minutes in order to help with a faster recovery process, elongate that fascia so that my legs, but in particular my quads, don't tighten up and that I'm able to perform it every day. HIIT can be performed through track sprints or rowing machine or circuits, but as I said, I think that the spinning bike for me is the best for me because I felt that it brought out the conditioning in my legs, but I also felt that I could perform it every day without getting injured. When I've done track sprints in the past, I found I picked up a lot of injuries in the way, and it means I couldn't perform as often as I would have liked. Because if you're performing HIIT, to me, doing a sprint, you should be failing. You should be pushing yourself till you can't carry on doing it. And I got a lot of strains, and I pulled muscles doing that on sprints, but not so much with the bikes. So as I've said, I perform 20-second sprints followed by a 40-second rest, but that's just what I do. You could say do 20 seconds sprint, 1 minute rest, 20 seconds sprint, 20 seconds rest, just depending on your fitness levels. And you can also change the sprint times up as well. You could do 15-second sprint, you could do 45-second sprint. Another example of things is Tabata training, where you perform 8 sets, 15-second sprint, 15 seconds rest, and that's another way of just mixing it up, keeping things varied, making your body guess so it doesn't get used to doing the same thing day in, day out. So how do I think HIIT's benefited me? So HIIT made me feel more energized when I left the gym after doing the weights, thinking, oh, I can't be bothered to do HIIT. But having done the HIIT, I then got that sort of endorphin rush, and I'd leave and I'd feel great, feel really good about myself, and I'd come home and I wouldn't feel sleepy and be falling asleep. It allowed me to get lean whilst maintaining muscle mass. That's just what I've experienced. I felt more functional, it increased my flexibility, and I became more cardiovascularly fit, so it was a win-win effectively. And all of those variables helped me perform better during my weight sessions as well, so I can't ask for anything more. Therefore I can't really emphasise how much I think that is an important tool to use as part of your training regime when trying to cut. But I also feel that HIIT can be performed by any body type, so ectomorph, endomorph, mesomorph. I feel like you could perform it and it will benefit you. Whereas with Liz, I wouldn't recommend Liz for a classic ectomorph, who struggles to put on lean tissue. As Liz is primarily used as a calorie burning tool, and that's not going to benefit somebody who struggles to put on mass. You can control it through your diet if it's that much of a problem, but you're struggling to put on weight in the first place. So what's the point? Everything you do has got to serve some sort of purpose if you're trying to be optimal. But having said that, you also do have to get the balance between satisfaction and optimal performance. There are things that I do that are not optimal for what I used to look like. Now this year I'm focusing very heavily on just looking my best, so I've stopped hitting my abs because I used to love hitting them, but they made them too thick, and that's what I was getting marked down on, so I've stopped doing that. But at the same time, I do feel you do need to do what you find enjoyable so that it becomes a lifestyle. You never feel the need to give up, you don't feel the need to change things. It's something that you actually want to do, and that's why I've managed to get to the shape I have, because I love going to the gym. I love lifting. You have to tell me to get out of the gym. So yeah, make sure that you've got that sort of balance there. The only potential negative impact I can think of that HIIT may have on an individual is the potential risk of losing muscle mass if you do not supplement adequately or you're not fueled for the session. Plus, there is also the thing to consider that performing it on too often, you could put a lot of stress on your central nervous system and release a lot of cortisol levels, which will hinder protein synthesis. But I performed it every day, along with Liz every day for those 10 weeks in order to get to my condition, just because I did, and I enjoyed the grind, I enjoyed pushing myself. But actually, having reflected on this, every other day would have been more than sufficient and probably been more beneficial for myself. So there you go. So that's wrapped up that first question. I hope you find that information useful and you can use it for yourself. But I'm an advocate of both. And yeah, just make sure you do them properly and how I've explained. So the second question, I've been asked by multiple people, so they keep asking me, so what's the best split for hitting all your muscles twice a week? So the split that I used during the cut, because I love to train every day, was push-pull legs, arms, repeat. And that means that you get that constant hitting of the muscle. You're able to train very, very frequently, but it also gives sufficient time for your muscle to rest if you're getting the right amount of nutrients and supplementation in for the recovery process. So that's what I recommend to hit twice a week. Push, pull, legs, arms. On the day where I hit arms, that's because I love to train every single day. You could just implement a rest day there, but I don't like to rest, so I don't. And the third and final question comes from a very good friend of mine called Alex Benjamin, and he asked me, can you get big by lifting light weights so long as the contraction there? And yes, you can. I'm sure you've seen from my videos, I'm not a big advocate of lifting crazy weights. I'm very much focused on keeping tension on the muscle and actually thinking about what you're trying to achieve. There's no egos for me when I'm trying to, contract the muscle and stimulate the muscle in order to, trigger cell growth. With regards to lifting heavy weights, yes, for some people, they might find that lowering the rep range will actually help them grow more. But for me, from my personal experience, I have always seen far better results from keeping the rep range between 10 and 12. Not only because I feel I get a better squeeze and better sort of blood flow to the area, but bodybuilding is a constant progression. And for me, when I lifted heavier but with fewer reps, I tended to get more injuries. And that's the worst thing that can possibly happen to you that will stop your progress, is the fact that you are unable to train. Even if you're causing some sort of, stimulus to the muscle, regardless of whether you're failing or not, that's better than not providing anything. So that's what I feel has been testament to the fact that I've been able to develop this physique, is that I've been to the gym every single day for the last 2.5 years. There's not been one day where I haven't gone, because I love to lift. That's what I love to do. So lifting light weights can definitely cause cell growth, but you do need to get the balance between lifting light and not causing any damage at all. I might concentrate on my form, but that's not to say that I'm not failing, because you do still need to provide a sufficient amount of stimulus in order to cause the muscle fibers to break down, which will then, once you leave the gym, recover, and that's the growth phase. Right, so been talking for a while now, quite tired after a long week. I hope that those answers are informative and that you find them useful. I will try and upload one of these once a week, every Saturday seminar we might call it. And if you could send in more questions, I look forward to seeing them and answering them, providing my feedback. And until next time, guys, peace.